What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of my series on how to master competitive Pokemon. In this video, we're going to be discussing an idea that I uncovered, not created, a few months back. What I'm about to discuss is the underlying framework for competitive Pokemon. I discovered these after pondering on what causes some players within the same tier to perform well or more consistently than others. Why can a player who's been playing for years be far worse than one who's only been doing it for months? I then discovered that the difference between players comes down to their level of proficiency in these three categories. So, without further ado, I introduce to you the three pillars. In Pokemon, there are three pillars that are critical to the development of any player. These are knowledge, awareness, and skill. Let's discuss each. Knowledge. The pillar of knowledge is predicated on actual information. It is knowing what exists, the types, the weaknesses, a move's power, how much damage a Pokemon may take from certain moves, everything. That is obviously not an exhaustive list. Its goal was merely to provide examples. In Pokemon, there will always be more things to learn. You may reach a cap with regards to the knowledge that the developers placed in the game, but with regards to metagames and their evolution, staying up to date is a must. The more you know, the better. Now, this isn't to say that you need to know everything to win or be great, but it does mean the more you know, the higher your likelihood of succeeding. I sometimes refer to knowledge as the most vital pillar because it's the most foundational. Knowledge holds power in the case of Pokemon, and this will make sense as you learn about the others, but for now, just soak up this information. Studying and exposure are the best ways to improve knowledge. You can do this by reading up on whatever it is that you want to know, or learn it secondhand by watching another player talk about it. These are the two ways amongst many that it can be acquired. Now, for the second pillar, skill. The second pillar of skill is predicated on what to do and when to do it. Ultimately, there aren't very many skills in Pokemon. It's how and when they're used that determine their effectiveness. Skill in this context is the ability to get the opponent to do what you want or to execute your own game plan. Meaning, can you get your desired result? Where knowledge is the information you know, skills are the actions you take. Two people can perform the same skill, but do them at different times, which will yield different results. Take the example of boxing or any combat sport. Often it isn't the surprise factor of a new skill that does an opponent in, but a familiar move performed at the appropriate time. Effectiveness is how you measure a skill. Was it effective or was it not? Effectiveness is defined by whether that action produced the desired result. Some may perform a skill, but it backfires and leaves them in a worse position. Developing this will ultimately come down to experience. Because of the multitude of scenarios and variables in each game, it is difficult for me to instruct you on the precise moments you'll need to use a particular skill. There are a few ways to assess whether a skill will be worth it or not, and those will be discussed in later videos. If you want to learn about those right now, then click the link in the description and pick up a copy of the book, The Art of Competitive Pokemon. That's where all the ideas and concepts discussed in these videos come from. So if you want access to that right now, then go grab a copy. The third and final pillar we're going to be discussing is awareness. This pillar is probably the most interesting and unexpected of the bunch. Upon thinking about what distinguishes players, skill and knowledge just didn't quite cover everything. Players will possess a high degree of skill and knowledge, yet struggle with applying them in the appropriate situations, thus causing all that knowledge and skill to be ineffective and damn near meaningless. I can't recall how it came to be, but it was during that process that I discovered the third pillar, awareness. Awareness relies on realizing that there is something to be done. One may possess the knowledge and the skills to act on something, but if one is unaware of the opportunity to utilize these, then it's useless. It seems so simple, but it's not until you're in a battle that you will realize how detrimental this is. Have you ever had a battle where you allowed a Pokemon to faint or take serious amounts of damage that wasn't supposed to? What happened? Did you lack the knowledge? No. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known that it wasn't supposed to take a lot of damage. Perhaps you lacked the skill. I don't think that's it either. You knew you only needed to switch to prevent that. So what happened? What happened is you lacked the awareness. You didn't realize or remember that you were supposed to prevent that damage. In that moment, you didn't realize that there were alternative options. This is a massive game changer. This can be the difference between a player being intermediate and a master. It is that important. Awareness calls upon knowledge and skill. Awareness dictates results. Let's use the example of a chariot. Knowledge is the chariot, skill is the horse, and awareness is the charioteer. The horse can guide the chariot, but it has no proper direction without the charioteer. If you have the knowledge of what you want to do and the skill to make it happen, but you are unsure of the appropriate time to deploy the skills, then your results will be inconsistent. In order to improve awareness, one needs to ask questions. The question you ask will depend on what you want to become aware of. Remember earlier in the video series, I asked you to ask yourself the question, do you have Pokemon that have moves that are super effective against multiple Pokemon? That was an example of bringing awareness to that aspect of the game. How high your awareness gets depends on how high your skill and knowledge gets. They're all interconnected. The more information you know, the more you're capable of being aware of. You can't be aware of something you don't know exists. Similarly, as your skill improves, your awareness improves as you will begin to notice the proper timing for actions to be taken. Remember, these are not mutually exclusive. The pillars do not function in an all or nothing manner. What I mean is, it is not the case that you either have it or don't. They're measured in terms of high, low, or anything in between. So a player can have a high proficiency in 2 pillars but display low proficiency in 1. A player with low proficiency in all of them will be deemed a beginner. A player with high proficiency in 1 and decent proficiency in the others would be considered an intermediate player. A player with high proficiency in 2 and decent proficiency in 1 would be advanced, and a master would have high proficiency in all of them. With these 3 pillars, you can perform a self-assessment of not only where you are, but also what you did incorrectly at any moment. You either never encountered that situation before, meaning you lack the knowledge. You encountered that situation before, but you're not sure how to solve it. That means low skill. Or you did not realize there was something that needed to be done, and that's low awareness. Knowing this alone places you a cut above the rest. And that's where we're going to end today's video. If you want to learn more about this stuff in even greater detail and to a greater extent, then I suggest you go in the link in the description and pick up a copy of my book, The Art of Competitive Pokemon: What's the Missing Piece to Your Game? If the video was helpful, please hit the like button down below, subscribe for plenty more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.